All right, this is Mr. Klemm. He's been here to donate his time to engage in an interview with us for the broadcasting project. And Mr. Klemm, how long have you been with SHG?
I have been with SHG now this is my fourth year.
Okay. And the classes you teach?
Currently, I've taught U.S. history all 4 years. I've taught global geography in the fall for all 4 years, U.S. at war in the spring all 4 years, and then this is my second year doing a semester psychology class in both the fall and the spring.
Okay. And since you've been here, have there been any changes, in the school or the students?
No, not too many changes in the students. One thing I just told my parents the other day when we were talking was less people refer to me as Coach Klemm and more people refer to me as Mr. Klemm. I don't consider that big of a deal. I still think both titles are respectful, but I've noticed that's changed quite a bit. Even some of my football players referring to me in the classroom as Mr. Klemm and then Coach Klemm.
Do you prefer, teacher, or do you prefer coach?
As I'm getting older, Mr. Klemm's not as bad. When I was 22, Mr. Klemm was a little bit more awkward.
Oh,
I wasn't
okay.
going to say the stupid line of, "Oh, that's my dad's name," but it was a little awkward, only having a 6-year age gap between myself and the seniors.
Yeah.
So.
Sometimes that can get a little bit awkward. Can you remember an embarrassing moment during your 4 years here?
I can remember many embarrassing moments, but the one I want to talk about would definitely be my first year. My first year was full of embarrassing moments.
It's okay.
And it was when we were talking about the Kennedy assassination, and we were doing a little bit of a recreation of it and going over the angles of the bullets and talking about who was hit and where they were struck. And I said something about, President Kennedy was shot and he was killed, but he wasn't the only one. Governor Connolly was also shot because he was sitting in front of him, and he was also killed. And Alex Patterson, and for people who are watching this who know Alex Patterson, they know he is a bit of a savant regarding this type of stuff, said, Governor Connolly didn't die. And I said, no, Alex, he did die. He got shot and he died just like President Kennedy. And he said, no, I'm pretty sure he didn't die. And then I believe it was between the next period that I looked it up and confirmed that he in fact was correct and I was not. And I sat at home the rest of the evening thinking about how do I casually tell the class really quickly I was wrong and he was right, and then move on to the next topic so they don't consider the fact that he outsmarted the teacher.
The nitty-gritty stuff is always, kind of...
Well, we can't remember everything. I mean, history is literally everything that's... you could do the history of what I ate for lunch today. I mean, that's technically history. It's in the past. But...
Doesn't hold monumental value, though.
Well, yeah, and that's not quite as monumental as what I kind of screwed up on.
But I mean, nitty-gritty, what's your most memorable moment, or, some proud moments?
I would say it's hard to boil it down to one thing. One aspect that really stands out, and I remember reading this from a teaching blog when I first started, was save all of the good things that you get for when you have bad days so that you can go back and look at those things and remember why you teach. And what I've done is I've printed off a lot of emails from students, parents, kept letters that they've written, kept those evaluation forms I had you guys fill out at the end of the U.S. history class. And so that means a lot because some people say some really nice things in those that make it worthwhile, especially on those days when it's hard to remember why I got into teaching.
Where did you read this? Was it just online, or did a professor tell you that, or?
Well, actually, one of our professors did mention it, but it was a teacher's blog of some sort that they had kind of said, definitely have a almost like a rainy day log of comments and things that you've kept.
Like a happy collection.
Basically, just put it in a drawer, and when you have a really bad day and it's gone rough and you're thinking about getting out, you read through that and remind yourself that it'll get better.
Why did you come to SHG?
Well, I needed a job, and jobs do pay money, and money pays for me to eat, amongst other things. But it was certainly unexpected. It had been Before my junior year was the last time that they had a job opening. That was when Mr. Coriel, which now none of the students here would remember him.
I don't remember him.
Because my freshman year was my first year. He got hired, and then he went to a school in St. Louis, and I got a text message from Bobby Brenneisen, Mr. Brenneisen's son, who was in my class, saying, my dad wanted me to let you know that there's a job opening at SHG, and it came at a great time because I was frustrated. I had 3 interviews, and they went well, but I didn't get the job, and that just came out of nowhere. It had been, like I said, 7 years since they'd had a job opening, so I wasn't even looking at SHG. And so that was easy for me to come back.
It was probably a nice transition since you've been here before, or maybe it was still rough.
No, absolutely. It was a very easy transition to an extent. Having known the other 4 teachers in the department, Mr. Lavin, Mr. Edmonds, Mr. Watts, and Ms. Shafts, all of them were here. I had 2 of them while I was here, so that definitely made it a lot easier. But it was still rough getting used to the teaching aspect, but it certainly helped to have some people to lean on that I already knew beforehand.
Do you have any things you could talk about while you were here as a student, or no, those really?
I have many things I could talk about from my time as a student.
Oh, I see.
More of a positive would be being on student council and getting which is going to benefit you hopefully in a couple weeks, getting the final exam exemption passed through as far as
When did that
if you
go
maintain
through?
it was our senior year.
Oh.
So we were part of the student council that got it pushed through. As far as maintaining a certain grade and then the absences and the detentions that you get out of the finals, that was a really huge accomplishment, something that I pride myself on and was really happy.
Were you part of it?
I was kind of part of it. I let our valedictorian, salutatorian talk to the faculty because while I was quite smart and still am, they were obviously
quite
top.
buddy with
Yeah,
them,
they were our top 2 students, and it was great to have them advocate for good reasons. And I think it's been really, really positive to have at the school. Now, as far as entertaining stories, I don't know if we have enough time for that. I can tell a few. One of my favorites was from Senora Richardson's Spanish 4 class. She had these little signs up all around her classroom that were laminated and colored, and they said, the clock in Spanish and all the different words in Spanish. And what I started doing at the end of each class was, while she was talking and distracted by somebody, I'd go and I'd just take one of them and I'd leave with it, and then I'd add it to my collection in my locker.
Your collection.
So eventually my entire locker door had all of these signs all over it.
Would she
and I
just
had to start
replace
going
them?
in. No, I think she realized it. She never said anything to me. And then the last day of class, we devised a plan to crowd around her and distract her. And I leaned up and I grabbed the chili piñata off of her sitting, and I concealed it, and they all blocked her vision, and I snuck out of the room. Well, shockingly, she knew it was me that had done it. It was I that had done it. I need correct grammar. And she ended up having Mr. Corey, when he was the dean, break into my locker, steal my calculator, and hold it ransom until I brought the chili piñata back. And she left a sign on her door in Spanish that said, "You will get your calculator back when I receive my piñata." I believe I still have that sign at home, even 10 years later.
Did you have to return the little?
I also had. She'd taken them back. She took them all back while she was illegally searching my locker, and illegally
You can't do that.
illegally took my calculator, my possession. Let's just ignore the fact that I had already stolen her signs. That's not. We're at a Catholic school. We
wouldn't do that.
We don't teach an eye for an eye. That's not advocated for. So there are honestly too many stories to go through. One other one I'll share really quickly because I like to give Mr. Wilson a hard time. It was only his second year of teaching, which I can only imagine if people had done this to me when I was a second year teacher. But you're not thinking about that as a student.
No.
We would try to break his train of thought, and one day we in the middle.
Train wreck his train of thought?
Yeah, exactly. One day while he was just up there talking like he normally did, we started breaking into Catholic hymns and started singing church hymns as a class, and I can't express the reaction on his face. he didn't. I mean, he
Was
had
it-
no
was it-
idea what to do.
Was it just wonder and awe, or was it like dismay and
Oh,
confusion?
it was just, he kind of had that smile where he's thinking, well, this is kind of funny, but I don't really know what to say at this point, so I guess I'll just keep smiling and staring at them, hoping that they'll stop when they see that I'm not freaking out and I'm just smiling at them. So we had a little bit too much fun here at SHG. Maybe that's the reason I came back.
Yeah, well, fun's always good. Like I know you see like since you're a teacher, you get to see the students like grow up, and is that cool to see? Or
I would say I had that down here about one of the best things to see as far as achievements is teaching the geography class, which is sophomores through seniors,
Mhm.
and then having psychology and U.S. at War and also the U.S. history. I have some four-timer students who get to take all four of my classes. I don't know who's
I think Mikey-
benefiting more from that, them or myself. But it's cool to see how much they mature personality-wise from sophomore to senior year. Some of the jokes they may have said sophomore year, they realize that they're stupid as seniors. But more importantly, it's great to see how much they improve as writers, critical thinkers, and just how prepared they are for college after growing up those 2 years in between.
yeah, it's
them.
very important during high school to like have role models and like teachers and stuff.
Yeah, and it's been good to even hear kids say, well, I really want to go into social studies because I really enjoyed your classes, and that's definitely a major achievement.
Anything about like coaching or well, you already talked about that, didn't you?
About coaching?
Yeah, about how like the Mr. Klemm and Coach Klemm.
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as the coaching background, originally when I went to college, and I don't recommend this for a few things here. One, I only applied to the University of Illinois and didn't apply to any others. Horrible, horrible. Don't do that. That's not recommended
options,
whatsoever.
guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Options.
Do not put all your eggs in one basket because I have no idea what I would have done if I hadn't gotten in there. I went into history when I started in college, but then I realized partway through, am I only going into history because I want to coach football and I just want to teach so I can have the opportunity to go coach? And that's what I felt like I was going into
Wait,
it first.
history to coach? What?
I know, that's what I thought at least. I realize that's the stereotype, but
That history teachers also coach.
it's a big stereotype amongst, which I don't understand how, because history takes up, I mean, grading stuff takes up a lot of my time, so I don't know why that was ever considered that way. I think that's changing. But so I switched my major because I thought I wanted to coach college football because I worked for the Illinois football team, and that was an amazing experience. Got to see a lot of inside things and got to be on the sidelines, wear a headset during most of the games, got to travel to a bunch of different states and a bunch of different stadiums. It was an amazing experience. But then I took another history class and realized that I was going into it for the right reasons, which would be another recommendation, that people take some other classes, make sure you really don't get sucked into a major and then realize at the very end,
Yeah.
I just wasted 4 years of my life and $100,000 to realize I don't want to do this. So I was glad that I at least went into something else and then realized, no, my original major was the right course.
So moving into something else, like kind of like gave you like the shock, like you knew that you didn't like that and you.
Correct. So being able to take some other classes and then still taking a history class made me realize I really did like history and really want to teach it, and it just grew as each year went on. But with the coaching aspect, it's still a huge, I guess I get a huge sense of relief sometimes. It's a good break from school, and I can kind of have some fun, and I enjoy. It's a huge hobby of mine.
You can like connect with your students, but like still.
Absolutely, I've made some amazing connections, and I feel like I've been able to mentor some of them outside of school, and still able to talk about school sometimes when we're at practice. But and obviously being blessed with 2 state championships and then 2 other seasons that have been pretty successful by pretty much everybody's standards has been pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. Any hobbies or interests, or?
Well, besides the constant time that I spend researching and spending so much time trying to find out more knowledge and encourage the learning of my students, such as Mr. Holligan. He's in my 6th-hour class, and as his class says, they can't get enough of it, and so therefore I just have to meet the requirements. Therefore, I don't have much other free time.
Yeah.
But if I do sneak in a little bit of
Just
free
do
time,
the reading, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. If I have a little bit of free time, I do my own reading occasionally. I do have some TV shows that I'm big on. I love Law and Order SVU. I really like American Horror Story. I've seen every single season. What other shows do I like? I like CNBC sometimes, The Prophet. And Riley's reminding me, I do like South Park. Sometimes I don't catch it. My Wednesdays are very full right now, very full. The students know that. I'm not going to get terribly much grading done because that's Law and Order SVU, new episodes. I think right now they're on a hiatus, so I've got a little bit of time to grade.
Got
I
to
guess.
schedule grading versus.
Yes, absolutely. I've got
Yeah.
that, and I have class Wednesday night, so it's jam packed, and that kind of goes with. And I'm sure you were getting to it, so I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. The educational background. Obviously, I already mentioned the University of Illinois, and now in the midst of all of this, with 6 classes and 3 different classes I'm teaching and coaching. That I'm taking 2 master's classes this semester and next semester at UIS to get my master's in educational leadership.
Does that eat up a lot of time?
It eats up
Yeah.
quite a bit. I have quite a bit of stuff to be doing these next few days. It's a good thing we've got this break coming up to get some of that done.
Well, I'm sure
certainly.
that does like reinforce like classes though.
Oh, absolutely. I'm able to talk to these guys about some of my own experiences. I'm able to mention things we've actually talked about in class, and I just mention as far as time management and kind of understanding what it's like to have essentially a day job, which your guys' day jobs being students, and then having something at night, like you guys have homework now. I've got homework too.
Well, I
so.
actually have a job.
Well, and you've got a job too, so you got to balance all those things. So it is good to always be reminded of the fact that students are really busy,
Yeah.
just like we are.
Do you have to like organize your projects with other projects from other teachers, or do you get together and talk about that, or?
Oh, as far as do I
Like, do you all-
work on projects with the other teachers in the class?
Yeah, but I was more talking about like so that not everyone just drops a project at the same like week or something like
Oh,
that.
do we here at SHG talk about that?
Yeah.
Oh, we do not.
No.
So my apologies. I'm sorry. That would take a lot of planning, I mean, the ultimate thing is that's life. College classes don't do it. You could get dumped with 2 or 3 midterms on one day or 2 or 3 finals on one day. And then life and your job, you just never know when stuff's going to add up, and you're going to sit there and wonder, how am I going to get all this done?
So it's better like that?
I think so. It gets you prepared. Because college definitely got me prepared. My student teaching definitely got me prepared. They threw me in the fire because I started teaching day 1. I didn't have any days to
Student
watch.
teaching.
Or when I student taught, it's your last semester before you graduate.
Oh.
You go and you're there for 14 weeks, I think it was. And one of my teachers dropped me in first day, and I was teaching a group of 38 seniors. And that was intimidating because
Yeah.
I'd never formally had control of a classroom before.
And like the age difference, like there was.
Oh, it's 5 years.
Oh.
So I'm teaching seniors. There's 38 in one class. So imagine your biggest class. What's your biggest class, you think? High 20s?
Yeah, probably like 26 or 7.
Okay. 38 was nuts. It was impossible to teach everybody and get everything done. So getting to do that and then coming here, and that's one thing I actually wanted to talk about with differences, and a nice thing about SHG is just the class sizes. Being able to have, I'm maxed at 22 in my little dungeon/fishbowl, which is nice.
The history dungeon.
Yes, the history dungeon is beautiful. It is nice for that aspect, even though we don't have windows to the outside. It's always sunny in my classroom. It's beautiful. It's great temperature, and you get to see,
You get to see
out of the fishbowl, and the other people can come by and see the copious amounts of
the
learning
studious,
that's taking place.
work. This
The cornucopia,
Yeah.
if you will. So.
schools in general, like public versus SHG or something like that.
You know, it was interesting going to the public school, because then I had this warped mind of, oh my gosh, the public school's this way and SHG's this way. There's some major differences. There's some similarities too. But I taught 5 classes during student teaching, and I had 170 students. And I teach 6 classes here, and I think I have 113 students. So, I mean, we can spend more time on essays, which I know really excites everyone in my class. They love more essays. I can spend more time grading because I don't have another 57 to grade outside of that, which takes up more time.
And
Because ultimately, when you're in a public school and you've got that many kids, you have to make cuts as far as, okay, I can only put this many comments on there because I'm not going to have a life otherwise.
Yeah.
And so it allows us to spend more time one-on-one with students and really work with them on improving.
Make sure that they like actually know the material and like
Exactly.
give them the questions they need to answer so that they
And it's a lot easier to check on if 20 students understand something versus almost 40. A lot of students can get lost in a class that's that big. And so a lot of public schools have, they're in the 30s as far as class sizes, whereas I don't think we really get bigger than like a 26,
Yeah.
27, 28. And that's usually the very high end.
And I know you've been like trying to reinforce like this your classes by like having like discussions so that they can like openly say what they think so that
Mhm.
you can tell what they
That's-
and also so they can probably each like talk about what they actually think.
Yeah, I want them to develop their own thoughts on the topics. It's not
Yeah.
important. I don't need to be sitting there preaching about what they should be believing. Unfortunately, a lot of college is like that, where they're going to tell you how they think it is, and you might want to go with that if you want to get a good grade as far as going along with their thoughts on a test. But I just felt really strongly, especially after seeing some other teachers kind of get too political or kind of try and shove their beliefs down a kid's throat. That just bothered me a lot, especially after I had a college professor do that in one of my education classes. When he was telling us not to be biased in the classroom, he was talking about his beliefs on
Yeah.
politics, and it was just very critical.
You just rather them have like critical thinking for themselves
Absolutely.
so that they can like learn by them. Like,
It's a really important
Yeah.
skill.
and you said about like not being biased, and like I know like some of my classes I've had like kind of like sometimes they go into other classes um like in philosophy, like I've learned like some psychological things and like how like bias and stuff like that, and I can like see that in like English class, and I can see that in other classes, and like when I'm like reading stuff I can like tell the bias is there.
And that's been really
Yeah.
big in the last decade, is cross-curricular, where they try to match up. So I obviously go pretty fast with my U.S. history
Yeah.
class, but last year you should have seen some things in English that we were talking about in history. So I know, for instance, the English
Yeah.
classes right now, or at least we're talking about the Transcendentalists, and we talked about Henry David Thoreau about a month ago. So they were already telling me, oh yeah, we've read this, we've talked about it, and I like that because that just builds on foundations, and then there's more of an understanding of how these things work across, not just in one class, but in multiple classes.
Yeah. I've noticed that like I noticed it like a little bit freshman year, but like senior year I've really been noticing it, like being
Okay.
able to go from class to class easier from being here longer.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Yeah, well, thanks for having you on the interview, Mr. Klemm, for
No
donating
problem.
your time for the student projects and to finish this interview.